My wife's friends convinced her to try a fake breakup test on me. My response sent her running away in embarrassment. Wrong husband to test, ladies. Last Thursday evening, I came home to discover my wife was planning to fake a breakup with me. Not because she actually wanted to leave, but because her friends had convinced her it would be a fun little test to see how much I truly loved her. I had come home early from my project management job, which I rarely do. The house was quiet, but I could hear muffled voices coming from the living room. My wife was on a speakerphone call, and I immediately recognized the voices. Her 3 closest friends, the ones who had been filling her head with toxic relationship advice for months. I stopped in the hallway, hidden from view, but close enough to hear every word clearly. What I heard chilled me to the bone. Just tell him you need space to think about your future together, one of them was saying. Men never appreciate what they have until it's threatened. Exactly, another chimed in. My cousin did that with her boyfriend last year. He practically begged her to stay and bought her a new car the following week. My wife's voice piped up, uncertain yet interested. But what if he just agrees? What if he doesn't fight for me? Trust me, honey, no man lets his wife walk away without a fight. He'll probably cry and promise to change everything about himself. I felt my jaw clench. These women were treating my marriage like some kind of social experiment. But the worst part was hearing my wife seriously considering it. I don't know, girls, it feels wrong to manipulate him like this. It's not manipulation, the first friend insisted. It's testing his commitment. You deserve to know where you stand in his priorities. Look, if he really loves you, he'll fight for you. If he doesn't, then you'll know the truth about your marriage. I heard my wife sigh deeply. When should I do it? This weekend. Make it dramatic, but not too over the top. Tell him you've been thinking and you're not sure if you're happy. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. These women were encouraging my wife to blow up our marriage for their entertainment. But what shocked me most was that she was actually listening to them. Remember, the key is to stay calm and serious. Don't give him any hint that it's a test. Let him stew for a few days. Then see how hard he works to win you back and document everything. Another friend added, laughing. This is going to be such good drama. I had heard enough. I quietly backed away from the hallway and slipped out the front door. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to storm in there and confront them all immediately. But something held me back. A better idea was forming. If my wife wanted to play games with our marriage, if she wanted to test me, then she was about to learn a very important lesson about her husband. I was not the kind of man to beg or plead. I was not going to dance like a puppet for her entertainment. I got back in my SUV and drove around the block, giving myself time to think. When I returned 20 minutes later, her friends were gone, and she was in the kitchen preparing dinner as if nothing was wrong. Hey, honey, you're home early, she said, kissing me on the cheek with what I now realized was completely feigned affection. Traffic was light today, I replied, studying her face. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with the dish towel in her hands. During dinner, she was unusually quiet, clearly rehearsing the script her friends had given her in her head. I ate calmly, making normal conversation, but inwardly I was planning my response to her little test. That night, as we lay in bed, she was restless beside me. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, likely debating whether to go through with her friend's ridiculous plan. I already knew she would. The seed had been planted, and women like her friends don't let their victims off the hook easily. They would keep pushing her until she followed through. But here was the thing my wife and her amateur psychologist friends didn't understand about me. I don't play games with people I love, and I certainly don't tolerate those who try to play games with me. If she wanted to test whether I'd fight for our marriage, she was about to find out that I don't fight for relationships with people who don't want to be in them. I don't chase, I don't beg, and I certainly don't dance for anyone's amusement. Saturday was coming, and I was going to be ready for her little performance. But my response was going to be nothing like what she or her friends expected. They wanted to see me desperate and pleading. Instead, they were going to meet a man who knew his worth and refused to be manipulated. The test was coming, but I had news for my wife. She was about to find out that some tests don't yield the expected results. Saturday morning arrived as planned, and so did my wife's performance. I was in the garage organizing tools when she appeared in the doorway, looking like she'd rehearsed her lines in the mirror. We need to talk, she said, her voice carrying that serious tone her friends had probably coached her to use. I looked up from the workbench, completely calm. Sure, what's on your mind? She took a deep breath, and I could see her steeling herself for the big moment. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about us, about our marriage, and I'm not sure I'm happy. I nodded slowly, as if processing this shocking revelation for the first time. Okay, what specifically is making you unhappy? The question seemed to catch her off guard. She likely expected me to panic immediately or ask what I'd done wrong. It's just, I feel like we've fallen into a routine, and I don't know if this is what I want for the rest of my life. I think I need some space to figure things out. Space, I repeated, setting down the wrench I was holding. What kind of space are we talking about? Maybe we should take a break, spend some time apart so I can think clearly about what I really want. I wiped my hands on a rag and leaned against the workbench. How long of a break? She blinked, clearly not expecting such a direct response. I don't know. A few weeks, maybe a month. A month, I said, nodding thoughtfully. That's reasonable. When do you want to start this break? Her mouth fell slightly open. This was not going according to script at all. You're okay with this? I shrugged. You said you need space to think. If that's what you need, then that's what you need. I'm not going to force you to stay in a marriage that doesn't make you happy. The color drained from her face. But don't you want to talk about it? Try to work things out. What is there to work out? You just told me you're unhappy and you need space. I'm giving you exactly what you're asking for. I saw panic starting to creep into her eyes. This was supposed to be the part where I fought for her, where I promised to change everything about myself to make her happy. So you're just giving up on us. I'm respecting your decision. You're an adult who knows what she wants. If you want space, you've got it. I walked past her toward the house. I'll start moving my things into the guest room today so you can have the master bedroom. We should probably figure out how to split the bills during this break period. Wait, she called after me. You're moving into the guest room right now. Well, you said you wanted space. I assumed that included physical space as well. She followed me into the house, her composure completely shattered. I didn't mean immediately. I thought we could discuss the details. The details seem pretty clear to me. You want a break from our marriage to figure out if you want to be with me. The sooner we start, the sooner you'll have your answer. I began pulling clothes out of our shared dresser with methodical calmness. She stood in the doorway, watching me, clearly grappling with how badly this had gone off the rails. Don't you have any questions? Any feelings about this? I paused and looked at her directly. Of course I have feelings, but you've made it clear that those feelings aren't enough to make you happy in this marriage. So what's the point of discussing them? That's not what I said. You said you weren't sure you wanted to spend the rest of your life with me. That's pretty definitive. Her phone buzzed. Probably one of her friends checking in on how the test was going. The irony was not lost on me. I'm going to call the guys and see if anyone wants to get dinner tonight, I said nonchalantly. Since we're on a break, I figure we should both start adjusting to being single again. Single. The word came out as a near whisper. That's what a break is, isn't it? Taking time to live without each other. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how to salvage this situation without admitting it was all fake. I think you're misinterpreting what I meant by a break. Am I? Because it sounds like you want the freedom to decide if you want to be married to me, which means we're essentially separated until you make that decision. She sat down heavily on the bed, watching me pack with growing alarm. Where are you going for dinner? Not sure yet. Probably that new steakhouse downtown. Haven't been out with the guys in months. The truth was, I had no specific plans, but I could see her imagining me out and about, acting like a newly single man, and it was clearly getting to her. You seem awfully calm about all of this, she said, her voice cracking slightly. I stopped packing and looked at her with what I hoped appeared to be sincere concern. Would you prefer I be upset? Because I can be, if that will make you feel better about your decision. No, it's not that. I was expecting more of a reaction. My reaction is to give you exactly what you asked for. Isn't that what you wanted? She didn't answer, just stared at me as I continued moving my things. Her phone buzzed again, and this time she ignored it completely. The test was in full swing now, but the results were nothing like what she or her friends had anticipated. Instead of a desperate husband begging her to reconsider, she was watching her marriage dissolve with clinical efficiency. And the best part was, it was all her idea. By Sunday night, my wife was clearly in full-blown panic mode. I had gone out with my friends as promised, stayed out until midnight, and come home acting as if nothing unusual was happening. She was waiting up for me, something she never did when we were supposedly happily married. How was your night? she asked, trying to sound casual. Great, really great. I actually forgot how fun it is to go out and not have to worry about getting back for someone. Her face tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Well, we're on a break, right? So I don't have to check in or worry about keeping someone else happy. It's liberating. I could see she was wrestling with the monster she had created. Her phone had been buzzing all weekend, likely her friends demanding updates on how their brilliant plan was working. On Monday morning, I was making coffee when she appeared in her bathrobe, looking like she hadn't slept much. I've been thinking about what I said on Saturday, she began cautiously. Oh good, you're making progress. That's the whole point of taking a break. Maybe I was too hasty. Maybe we should try therapy instead. I turned to face her, coffee mug in hand. Therapy? But you said you weren't sure you wanted to spend your life with me. What would we talk about in therapy? I think I was just stressed. Work has been overwhelming, and I might have taken it out on our marriage. Stress? I repeated thoughtfully. That makes sense. Stress can definitely make you question fundamental things, like whether you love your husband. She winced. I never said I didn't love you. No, but you did say you weren't happy and you needed to figure out what you wanted. Those are pretty serious concerns that probably can't be fixed with a few therapy sessions. I poured my coffee and headed for the door. Besides, now that I've had a few days to think about it, maybe this break is exactly what we both needed. What do you mean? Well, I've realized how much energy I've been putting into trying to make someone happy who apparently wasn't. It's nice to focus on myself for a change. Her mouth hung open. You're saying you like being on a break? I'm saying I'm learning a lot about myself and what I will and will not accept in a relationship. That afternoon, she called me at work, something she rarely did. Can we get dinner tonight? Just to talk. I don't know if that's a good idea. You said you needed space to think clearly, and spending time together would just muddy the waters. Please, just one dinner. I let out a long sigh. Fine, but only if you're sure it won't interfere with your decision-making process. At dinner that night, she was trying every possible angle to walk back her fake breakup without admitting it was fake. I realize I might have been overly dramatic on Saturday. Maybe I don't need a full break. Maybe just some changes in how we do things. What kind of changes? I asked, cutting my steak with deliberate precision. I don't know. Date nights, weekend trips, things to reconnect. Those sound like things we could have done before you decided you were unhappy in our marriage. What's different now? She was trapped by her own logic. If she admitted she wasn't really unhappy, she'd have to explain why she faked the whole thing. I guess I needed to almost lose something to realize how much it mattered to me. I put down my fork and looked at her seriously. But you haven't almost lost anything. We're still married. We're just taking a break so you can decide if you want to stay married. Maybe I don't need a whole month to think about it. Are you sure? Because changing your mind on major life decisions seems like something you should really think through. Her frustration was becoming visible. You're being deliberately difficult. I'm being supportive of your needs. You said you were unhappy and needed space. I'm making sure you get exactly what you asked for. By Wednesday, she was getting desperate. She tried a different approach. I think maybe the problem isn't our marriage. Maybe it's that we don't spend enough quality time together because of work and other obligations. Could be, I agreed. Although you did say you weren't sure you wanted to spend the rest of your life with me. That seems like more than a scheduling issue. I was just overwhelmed. I didn't mean it literally. Oh, so when you said you needed space to figure out if you wanted to be married to me, that was metaphorical? She opened and closed her mouth like a fish. There was no right answer to that question that wouldn't expose her lie. On Thursday night, she escalated things. What if I said I made a mistake? What if I said I don't want to break anymore? I looked up from the book I was reading in the guest room. Then I'd say you need to be really sure about that decision. What do you mean? Well, you've already shown me that when life gets stressful, your instinct is to question our entire marriage. How do I know this won't happen again the next time you have a bad week? She stared at me, realizing I was turning her fake concerns into real relationship issues. Are you punishing me? I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. On Friday morning, I heard her on the phone with her friends again. This time, the conversation was very different. It's not working at all. He's not fighting for me. He's acting like he's actually relieved to be separated. Maybe you need to tell him you're thinking about divorce, one of them suggested. That'll definitely get a reaction. I smiled to myself. They were about to escalate their stupid game to a level where I could really show them what kind of man they were dealing with. Sure enough, on Friday night, She sat me down with her most serious expression yet. I've been thinking during this break, and I'm wondering if maybe we should consider making this separation permanent. I nodded slowly, as if considering it carefully. Like a divorce? Maybe. I mean, if we're both happier apart. You know what? You might be right. Her eyes widened. I've been thinking about it too. This week has actually shown me a lot about what I want in a partner, and maybe we're not compatible in the long run. She looked like I had slapped her. This was supposed to be the nuclear option that was supposed to make me come crawling back, not the statement that would make me agree. You want a divorce? I want to be with someone who is sure they want to be with me, and you've made it pretty clear that's not you. The test was backfiring spectacularly, and we both knew it. Saturday morning, exactly 1 week after her initial performance, my wife was pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. I was calmly having breakfast and reading the news on my tablet when she finally cracked. Okay, stop it. Just stop all of this. I looked up from my tablet. Stop what? This act. This whole calm, accepting routine you've been doing for a week. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. You said you wanted a break, possibly a divorce. I'm giving you what you asked for. She slammed her coffee mug down on the counter. No, you're not. You're supposed to be fighting for us. You're supposed to care that your wife is leaving you. But my wife isn't leaving me. My wife is making an informed decision about whether she wants to stay married to me. I'm respecting that process. There is no process, she exploded. God, you're so frustrating. I put down my tablet and looked at her with genuine curiosity. Help me understand something. Are you angry because I'm not fighting for our marriage? Or are you angry because I'm respecting your stated wishes? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. The trap was perfect, and she saw it. I'm angry because you don't seem to care. About what, specifically? About losing me. I stood up and walked around the kitchen island until I was facing her directly. Here's what I care about. I care about being with someone who wants to be with me. I care about having a partner who doesn't need to threaten our marriage to feel valued. And I care about not wasting my time with someone who isn't sure they love me. Her face paled. I never said I didn't love you. No, but you said you weren't sure you wanted to spend your life with me. And honestly, after this week, I'm starting to understand why. What is that supposed to mean? I leaned against the counter, studying her face carefully. It means I've learned something important about you. When things get tough, your instinct isn't to work together or communicate. Your instinct is to threaten the very foundation of our relationship. That's not fair, isn't it? You literally told me you wanted to separate to decide if you wanted to be married to me. That's not a communication strategy. That's emotional manipulation. Her eyes widened. The word manipulation landed exactly where I intended. I wasn't manipulating you. Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you manufactured a crisis to get attention and test my devotion. That's pretty much the textbook definition of manipulation. She was starting to panic now. You're twisting everything. Am I? Let me ask you a direct question. Do you actually want a divorce? No. Do you actually want to separate? No. Were you actually unhappy in our marriage? She hesitated just long enough to confirm what I already knew. Well, things weren't perfect. But were you seriously considering leaving me last Saturday morning? Another hesitation. I was confused. I nodded slowly. Confused about what exactly? About whether you really appreciated me. So you decided to threaten our marriage to find out. I didn't threaten anything. I just told you I needed space to think. About whether you wanted to spend your life with me. Most people would call that a threat. She was cornering herself with every answer. You're making it sound worse than it was. How should it sound? Because from my perspective, my wife told me she was unhappy in our marriage and wanted to separate. I can't imagine a way to make that sound better. Her phone buzzed on the counter between us. Without thinking, she glanced at it, and I saw her face change. Your friend's checking in on how the test is going? She went completely white. What? The test. The one where you fake a breakup to see how hard I'll fight for you. How's it going? Her mouth fell open. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Because I heard every word of your phone call last Thursday. The one where your friends convinced you to test my commitment by threatening to leave me. She flinched back as if I had physically struck her. You heard? I heard all of it. The fake drama, the advice on what to say, even the part where she giggled about documenting it for entertainment. Tears began to well up in her eyes, but I wasn't finished. So let me ask you again. Were you really unhappy in our marriage? Or were you conducting a psychological experiment on your husband for your friend's amusement? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She said it would help me understand how you really felt about me. I let out a bitter laugh. And how do I really feel about you? I don't know anymore. You want to know how I feel? I feel like I've been married to someone who would rather manipulate me than talk to me. I feel like my wife values the opinions of her friends more than our relationship. And I feel like I've spent a week being tested like a lab rat by someone who promised to love and respect me. She was crying now, but I wasn't done. The worst part isn't even that you did it. The worst part is that when it didn't go as planned, you tried to escalate it by threatening divorce. You were willing to blow up our marriage over a game. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know it was wrong. Do you really? Because you spent a week doubling down on the lie instead of just coming clean. I didn't know how to fix it. You could have told the truth at any point. Instead, you just kept digging the hole deeper. She was sobbing now, the weight of what she'd done finally hitting her. But I had been planning this moment for a week, and I wasn't going to let emotion derail it. Here's what's going to happen now. You're going to call your friends and tell them exactly how their brilliant test turned out. You're going to explain how their manipulation nearly destroyed your marriage. And then you're going to decide if you want to be married to me or married to their approval. I choose you. I choose our marriage. That's easy to say now, but you chose their game over our relationship once already. Why should I believe this time is any different? She had no answer to that, and we both knew it. The test was over, but the real consequences were just beginning. That evening, fate handed me the perfect opportunity for the next phase of my plan. My wife's friends were hosting their monthly dinner party, and we were both invited. Under normal circumstances, I would have found an excuse not to go. These were not normal circumstances. We should probably skip it tonight, my wife said nervously as she was getting ready, after everything that happened. Actually, I think we should go, I said, adjusting my collar in the mirror. I have some things I'd like to discuss with your friends. Her face paled. What kind of things? Just how well their relationship advice worked out for us. The dinner party was in full swing when we arrived. The same 3 friends who had orchestrated this whole mess were there, along with several other couples. Perfect. My wife tried to steer us toward a quiet corner, but I had other plans. Ladies, I said, walking directly toward the 3 conspirators. I wanted to thank you for your excellent marital advice last week. They exchanged nervous glances. What marital advice? One asked innocently. The phone consultation where you convinced my wife to fake a breakup with me to test my devotion. Brilliant strategy, really. The conversations around us began to die down as the other guests tuned in. I'm not sure what you mean, another friend said, but her voice was trembling. Really? Because I heard every word of your coaching session. The part about having her threaten to leave, the suggestion to document it for drama, even the backup plan to escalate to divorce threats if I didn't react the way you wanted. We had everyone's attention now. My wife looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The best part, I continued, loud enough for the whole room to hear, was when she actually took your advice and I called her bluff. You should have seen the panic on her face when I started agreeing to the separation. One of the husbands in the room let out a low whistle. You told her to fake a breakup? It wasn't fake, the first friend protested weakly. We just thought she should test his commitment. I laughed. Test my commitment by lying to me and manipulating me? Is that your idea of healthy relationship advice? Every relationship needs testing, she said defensively. Does yours? I asked, turning to her husband. Did your wife test your commitment by threatening to leave you for entertainment? Her husband was now staring at his wife with a new expression. Did you? The room was now dead silent. I saw my wife trying to signal me to stop, but I was just getting started. Here's what I've learned about tests, I announced to the room. When someone tests you, they're telling you they don't trust you. When someone manipulates you, they're telling you they don't respect you. And when someone lies to your face for an entire week, they're telling you exactly who they are. That's not fair, one of the friends said. We were just trying to help her feel more secure in her marriage. By teaching her to be manipulative and dishonest? That's your version of security? Another husband spoke up. Wait, so this whole thing was fake? The whole separation story? Completely fabricated? I confirmed. A week-long psychological experiment designed by these 3 relationship experts right here. The friends were starting to look desperate. You're making it sound worse than it was. Am I? Because my wife spent a week lying to my face. threatening our marriage, and escalating to talk of divorce, all because you three convinced her it would be fun to play with her husband's emotions. The room erupted in murmurs. Other wives were looking at the three friends with disgust. Their husbands were looking at them with suspicion. Maybe we should go, my wife whispered desperately. Why? We're just getting to the good part. Tell everyone how your test turned out, ladies. Did I beg and plead like you predicted? They remained silent. No? Well, let me fill everyone in. When my wife told me she wanted to separate, I helped her pack. When she said she needed space, I gave her all the space she wanted. When she threatened divorce, I agreed it might be for the best. The crowd was hanging on my every word now. Turns out, when you call someone's bluff, they panic. Funny how that works. One of the friends made a final, desperate attempt at a defense. We were just trying to make sure she knew her worth. I looked at her directly. Her worth isn't determined by how desperately her husband reacts to manipulation. Her worth comes from being honest, trustworthy, and respectful in her relationships. 3 things your advice completely undermined. The party was effectively over. People were now making excuses to leave, and the 3 friends were being pointedly ignored by everyone. On the walk to the car, my wife was silent until we were inside. Did you have to humiliate them like that? I started the engine and looked at her seriously. They humiliated themselves. I just made sure everyone knew who was really behind our marriage problems. The message was clear. Actions have consequences, and her friends had just learned what happens when you interfere in someone else's marriage. The ride home from the party was silent until we pulled into our driveway. My wife sat in the passenger seat, staring at her hands. I know you're angry, she finally said. Angry doesn't even begin to cover it. I replied, cutting the engine. But we need to have a conversation about what happens next. Inside the house, I sat at the kitchen table and motioned for her to join me. This was the moment where everything would be decided. Your friends won't be calling you anymore, I said factually. After tonight, they'll probably blame you for making them look bad instead of taking responsibility for their toxic advice. She nodded miserably. I know. Good. Because that tells you everything you need to know about the kind of people they are. I leaned forward, making sure she understood the gravity of what I was about to say. Here's where we are. You made a choice to prioritize their entertainment over our marriage. You lied to me for an entire week. You escalated fake problems into real threats. And when I didn't react the way you expected, you doubled down instead of coming clean. Tears were flowing again, but I continued. So now you have to make another choice, the most important one of your life. What choice? You can choose to rebuild this marriage on a foundation of honesty and respect. That means completely cutting these toxic influences out of your life. No more girls' nights with them. No more calling them for advice. No more letting them poison your head with their manipulative tactics. She was listening intently now, or you can choose to keep those friendships and lose this marriage. Because I will not be tested, manipulated, or disrespected again. Not by you, and certainly not by your friends. I choose you, she said quickly. I choose our marriage. That's what you said yesterday. But choosing me means more than words. It means proving you understand what you did wrong and why it can never happen again. How do I prove that? I have been thinking about this all week. First, you're going to call each of those friends tomorrow and tell them you will not be continuing the friendships. You will explain that their advice almost destroyed your marriage and that you are taking full responsibility for following it. Her eyes widened. All 3 of them. All 3 of them. In front of me, so I know you've actually done it. Okay, she whispered. Second, we are going to couples therapy. Real therapy, not the amateur psychology your friends were peddling. Because you need to understand why you thought manipulation was an acceptable option in the first place. She nodded enthusiastically. Yes, absolutely. Third, you are going to rebuild my trust through your actions, not your promises. That means complete transparency about where you're going, who you're talking to, and what advice you're receiving about our relationship. For how long? I looked at her seriously. For as long as it takes for me to believe you've learned from this mistake. She was silent for a long time, processing the conditions. And if I do all that, will you forgive me? Forgiveness isn't something you earn by completing a checklist. It's something that happens when I see a real change in your behavior and your attitude. I stood up from the table. But I will say this. The fact that you're willing to cut ties with those friends tells me you might finally understand how serious this is. I really do. We'll see. Because understanding it intellectually is different from permanently changing your behavior. In the following days, she did everything I asked. The calls to her friends were awkward and painful, but she made them. She found a couples therapist and scheduled our first appointment. She even deleted their numbers from her phone without me asking. But the real test came a few weeks later when one of the friends tried to reach out, claiming she had been misunderstood at the party. My wife showed me the text message and asked me what I thought she should do. What do you think you should do? I asked in return. I think someone who is trying to save face instead of taking responsibility for their actions hasn't learned anything from what happened. I smiled for the first time since this whole ordeal began. That's exactly right. She blocked the number without a second thought. 6 months later, our marriage was stronger than it had been in years. Not because we had survived a crisis, but because we had established clear boundaries about what we would and would not accept from each other. My wife learned that real security in a relationship comes from honest communication, not manipulative tactics. And I learned that sometimes the best way to fight for your marriage is to refuse to play the games that undermine it. The test was over, but the lesson was permanent. Some lines, once crossed, change everything. The key is to make sure they change things for the better. Comment. I've learned that true strength in any relationship isn't about the noise you make, but the peace you protect. Your self-worth should never be a prize in someone else's game. Setting a firm boundary isn't an act of anger. It's an act of love for yourself and for the health of your relationship. We all make mistakes, but real growth happens when we take full responsibility for our part. True healing begins with honesty, not with creating more drama to avoid the truth. You always have the right to choose calm over chaos. Remember that being kind to others must also include being kind enough to yourself to refuse disrespect. The advice you accept can shape your life, so choose your advisors with great care. I hope you always find the courage to build connections based on trust, not on tests. Your peace is precious, and you deserve relationships that honor it every single day. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.